right, welcome to Society, the podcast. Today we have a really dope episode where we're going to be interviewing these three amazing women we have here who are wrapping up their third year in their emergency medicine residency career. So we're going to dive in and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. So here we go. All right. So first we're going to start with introductions. So if y'all can just introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what are your future career paths after you finish residency in a few months.
Go ahead.
Okay. We'll start with Yenny on the other side. Yeah.
My name is Omo Yenny. My work name is Dr. Clement. I am Nigerian. I was born technically in Canada, but grew up mostly in the United States. My childhood home was in San Diego, California. But I did do most of my training out in New York, both for undergrad, medical school, until I matched at UT. So I'll be finishing up in June and then working in Houston. I signed a contract to work out in Katy with the Houston Methodist system. So I get to be Dr. Oso's lovely coworker in a couple of months. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm Felicia. I'm from Massachusetts, grew up like 30 minutes outside of Boston, and now I'm working here with these lovely ladies.
And I'm Zoe, Dr. Zoe Fisher. I'm from Colorado and went to med school with Felicia here, so we're long-time friends.
Yeah.
And after I plan to pursue medical education.
Nice. Awesome. First of all, before we start, I just want to compliment you guys because y'all all look amazing in the scrubs, the sneakers. I love it.
Thank you.
So shout out to y'all for that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So first of all, what made you want to go into EM? Was EM your first choice? And if not, then what else were you considering?
I can start. I grew up doing a lot of sports. Like I was dancing, I did competitive cheerleading. I played every sport under the sun. So I thought I was gonna do orthopedics while I was pre-med.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was
Me too.
While I was pre-med, I really thought I was gonna do ortho. Then I did like some shadowing and I was like, I don't know. Then I went to undergrad. I got my degree in health science and it was really like public health focused. So I got to do like an internship practicum with the Boston Public Health Commission, and we worked alongside one of these PEM docs who worked at Boston Children's, and he was building out this database for community resources within like the Boston community, because it's like people don't know that there's resources that exist. There are plenty of them. People have gone above and beyond to create resources for people, but his idea was to bring them all together. So it really like made me see like, okay, a lot of emergency medicine physicians are really in the community, like doing the work that I was very like involved in and loved. And so kind of made me flip and see, wow, like I can do both the things that I love at the same time if I do pivot towards emergency medicine. And then I started shadowing that way. And after I graduated from undergrad, I was like, yeah, this is it. EM's for me.
Nice.
I love that you were influenced by someone, because I feel like that's a similar story for me. Like I wanted to do pediatrics, and during my gap years, I worked at a pediatrics clinic. I was just like a basic MA, taking vitals, making appointments, holding babies down while they're getting vaccines. And then one of my coworkers, her partner was an ER doctor who was also PEM trained, who did ultrasound as well, and she worked at a hospital nearby this private clinic I was at, and so she would like kind of sneak me in and let me shadow her. And I saw her as this like genderqueer Black woman, kind of just like bossing up and just going from room to room and stabilizing patients and telling me like a pre-med about BiPAP. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but okay. Sure. And she really influenced me. And like, I have to give her a lot of credit. Like her name's Angela Maxwell. She's an amazing clinician. She loved what she was doing. And she really did like, it kind of put that thing in my head, even though throughout my medical school career, I still did a lot of pediatrics. I always said, okay, let me just consider EM. And then I found that I really got along well with the EM people. And I just felt like a click and a bond that made me think, all right, well, I'll just apply to EM instead of peds. And so I kind of switched up last minute during my fourth year.
Nice.
I think I was influenced too. I definitely, doing pre-med stuff, trying to get any shadowing experience, like begging people at their door to like let you in. And so there was in college someone who was at U of Chicago and I was at Loyola Chicago who let me shadow him in like the ICU, and like he was an EM resident. I was like, this seems pretty okay, cool. We're going doing our rounds. Like it was a great experience, and I think that kind of set the benchmark of like, okay, EM's good. Can anything top it? And so then I just met medical school like, this doesn't feel all the way there. I don't feel as good at this rotation as I did on EM. And so I was just looking for things to top it, and nothing really ever beat that mark. So I think that's how I ended up.
I love it. I love it. And one dope thing that you guys all talked about is that the things that you guys were interested in initially, whether it was peds or ortho, like you get that within emergency medicine. So you still get that fix. And that's something that brought me to emergency medicine too, because I liked so many things. I loved ortho. I was a big sports person. Love kids, not so much. But, you know, I can still get that in emergency medicine, you know, in whatever dose. So whether it's neuro, cardiology, you can still get your fix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's dope. So our next question, if you could go back and tell your intern self one thing, one word of advice, what would you tell them? What would you tell little intern Yenny, little intern Felicia, intern Zoe?
I would say you need like a schedule. Like you need to schedule out studying. You need to schedule out like life stuff. Like we're going to dinner, schedule out your walks, schedule out your family time. Because I think you have so much on your plate that if you wait for the moment to come, it'll be like, I'm too tired. I can't. I didn't plan it. There's too much logistics. But if you schedule out yourself, like, oh, in this quarter, I want to go to Austin for a few days. I want to go on a walk with Felicia. Let's look at our calendars. Like that type of thing, you can build in your wellness. Because if you wait for it to come to you, it's not going to come.
You're
going to get to your day off and you're going to be like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
That's
So this
Time gets away from you fast.
Real quick.
Sure.
Right.
Kind of along the same lines, I was just going to say, like, learn specifically what you need to take care of yourself, because you don't want to be kind of like lost and unsure about your self-care practices. And I know that, you know, self-care is like a big bucket word, but you literally need to identify like 5 things that you can do, big and small, to kind of ground yourself and really make sure that you prioritize those things.
Right.
Because residency and medicine in general will try to snatch every little bit and piece and part of you, and all of a sudden you will forget like who you are, what you do, what makes you happy, what makes you thrive. And so I think just like knowing that for yourself and practicing that early is something that I would probably tell my intern year self.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like both of those. No, schedule is like
Schedule.
highest of keys.
Right.
The schedule, even like scheduling out questions. And like in my mind, like I fake scheduled things, but that fell through all the way. But to say something that's different, like being more confident and just being wrong, like out loud. I feel like it's still something that is struggle with, but just like knowing people can't help you if they don't know where you're at or like what you know. So just being confident and like saying what I'm thinking, and like you know, you're gonna be right sometimes, you're gonna be wrong sometimes, but nobody can help you if they don't know what you don't know.
That's
Don't
true.
know what you don't know. So.
I think that can be really hard, because especially as you come in as an intern, a lot of times you have kind of imposter syndrome. You know, you come from different backgrounds. Your mates are, you know, they went to this school or that school, or they had experiences that you didn't have. And you feel like, man, I don't want to like expose myself as being incompetent. And so you find yourself being like very shy and like not really speaking up, even though you might know the answer. So that confidence key is like super important.
Can I add something? Because
sure.
I think people make you into an imposter or try to.
They try to.
There's like a sinister aspect of medicine where you might work around people who think that you're wrong. Yeah. And you might play into this dynamic where they're telling you that you're wrong, and now you start to second guess yourself. So practice being wrong, but also practice being loud and right, because people do not encourage that, especially from people who I think like look like us. Residency was a big hurdle for me, because I'd be in my head like, I know the answer, but I'm not going to say it. You know? And I had to learn how to be like, no, I'm right, and you're wrong.
Medicine. I remember when we were in medical school, we had an attending like that. Like if you showed any hesitation, whether you were right or wrong, if you show hesitation, it's a pounce. So like be loud and wrong. This equals this. like 2 + 2 = 8 and say it with your chest.
Facts.
But at least you didn't have
Because if it is = 4, if you were right and you said it like hesitantly, still doesn't count.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and I
Like
think
doing
people
your
are going to
AJ.
have more confidence the more confident you sound.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're always hesitating, even when you're right, they're going to be like, do you want to ask your attending? Do you want to run that by somebody? And sometimes you just need to say like, I'm pretty sure about this. And when you're not sure, you'd be like, I'm going to find the answer. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like,
Huge part of our job.
so I think there's a way to like inspire confidence from the people around you, but
Absolutely.
also not be unsafe. And I think that was intern year was
Absolutely.
finding that balance of like,
Facts.
I'm in charge. I have my limitations,
Yeah.
but like we can't just double guess every
Every
Tylenol
single
pill.
thing.
I don't need to Google it. This is not an up to date.
I remember just like going home at night and like looking on my phone like, oh my God, I know they said like this. And then I
Right.
like would go to sleep and then wake up and be like, oh my God, I need to Google something else. Like they told me I was wrong. I'm like, no, I think I was right. But like just
Right.
spiraling.
That spiral.
And
Yeah.
it's like, no, you were right. Breathe.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And it's like you do the work, right? I mean, you study, of course, as you go from intern year to 30 year, you're gonna get smarter. But like you said, just being confident, even if you are wrong, right? Because within the first couple of minutes with someone talking to you, you're presenting a case to a attending, they're gonna really pay attention to not exactly what you're saying, but how you're saying it.
Yeah.
How confident you sound. If you're like timid, like, is 250 of Tylenol too much to that won't kill them, right? And you're like, they've already made a mental
gonna
note. Like, okay, Dr. Oso is very confident. Do not trust anything he says.
Double check all of his work.
You know, versus like if you sound confident, you have authority in your voice, you're wrong, but I like the demeanor and swag you got about it. And so as you get smarter, then that confidence just matches the knowledge. So
Exactly.
yeah. All right.
Love it.
So we'll keep going. So what are some challenges that you guys faced that maybe you figured you would face in residency, or even challenges that you didn't expect to have?
That's a good one. Well, on a personal note, I can say I did not expect, because of the schedule thing, to gain so much weight.
That's a real thing.
Wow.
That is a real thing. The residency 20 is a very real thing that people don't talk about.
like an
That's facts.
additional
Especially in
thing.
Texas.
Crying.
Like-
Oh my
Just
God,
saying.
Texas.
Oh,
Oh,
very
the
Because none of us are from Texas
the
originally.
brisket.
No.
It's like
The
brisket,
food's
so
beef,
wild.
beef, brisket,
Like,
brisket,
I was-
brisket, beef. Red meat,
No
red meat,
facts.
cheese.
Tacos.
Fried.
And late night, like it's just I wasn't expecting that at all. But like in terms of like medicine, like you always hear about like, you know, you're a woman, like the nurses might respond to you differently, and to see it play out in real time it's kind of crazy. And you're like, what? Really? But then you like go through and you start building relationships with everyone. You're like, okay, like everyone's really not like bad. Like it's not as awful as they say, but like it is real.
Process.
Like it is real, and like
Yeah,
it
it
really
does
is a
happen.
process. And
Yeah.
you're just like,
Yeah.
Agreed.
okay, cool. I see what they're talking about now.
Yeah.
So.
I think the same thing, like finding my professional identity, especially like transitioning into becoming an attending. Like, do I want to be called Zoe? Do I want to be called Dr. Fisher? Does it depend? Do I want like, what do I want my relationships with patients to be? Are we collaborative? Are we shared decision making? Am I going to give you suggestion and options and you choose? So figuring out like how I want to practice and knowing that there's not like exactly one right way.
Right.
Just like in our attendings, you know, there's various things that some do, some don't do. And you're like, I want to pick up this, I want to pick up that. So I think building that like who you are as a doctor and kind of living in what do I want to do? How do I want to move out my day with patients? And how do I want to define that for myself has been really difficult to kind of address. Even I remember intern year, I was like, hi, my name is Zoe Fisher. Zoe Fisher, doctor. I'm your doctor.
Like, are you
What?
sure? Do you
And
know?
like I was like, oh, this is a lot. This is not spark confidence. But just even figure out what I want to be called. Like something as simple as that just takes a lot, and you don't really fall into a pattern, I feel like, till you get to this point. And even next year, I think we're gonna figure out like,
How to
what's
be
the
an attending?
relationship? Yeah, like what type of relationships do I have my techs versus other attendings versus you and your residents versus you and the fellows. So I think it'll be only growth that we have to experience from here.
And I took that question really personally because I was not thinking about work at all or
Yeah.
professional identity.
For sure.
when you ask like what's something that surprised you or that you didn't expect, I really thought like I wasn't expecting so many of my friends to feel foreign to me, like relationships to feel foreign. I wasn't expecting.
You mean like your old friends
Yeah,
before
like,
residency?
Yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't expecting to feel so isolated, like in a lot of the experiences that we have as ER trainees.
Yeah.
The work that we do is like not normal, and we see death and dying, and we have to deal with that on a daily basis.
That's real.
And that, I think, isolates you from the people that you love,
Yeah.
because some people don't want to hear it when you come home and you're like, I saw this, this, and that, and I really just need a space to kind of like offload that and just share the things that I saw and experienced. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people in my life who just were not prepared to hear it, and I respect it. I respect that.
Right.
Like, what we do is very, bloody and gruesome and difficult.
Not normal.
And not normal.
The amount of death that we see on a daily basis is not
It's not normal, but I, as someone who is also not accustomed to it, who's getting into training, getting into the mindset and trying to build up the mental fortitude and the emotional strength to deal with it.
Right.
I also need help and I struggle. And so I wasn't expecting to feel so isolated. And then like on another personal note, like I had some health challenges recently. Like I turned 30 and I got sciatica in my leg. You can cut that out, but I developed sciatica.
It's fine, be free.
Now I'm like, the schedule now has to be what meds am I going to take every day? How much PT can I do this week when I'm switching from days to nights? Like, do I need to schedule this outpatient MRI? And it's like, no, there's some real health consequences to the labor that we do in our career. And we have like the shortest lifespan, right, of all career specialties.
Yeah, highest burnout.
So highest burnout, and I guess I just thought it wouldn't affect me. Like I'm not superhuman, and the body, the body breaks down. The body keeps the score of like all of the things that we're doing every day. So those are the things that I think surprised me the most about like, starting this career. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, those are all really good points. So, as you guys have gone through your tenure in residency, you go through the highs and lows. And so sometimes you go through a stretch. The stretch could be a few days, could be a few shifts, could be a couple months, it could be a whole half a year, So like, how do you deal with those? Sometimes it's certain rotations. So like when you went through those tough times during these last 3 years, just looking back at it, how did you deal with it in real time? And like, what were your coping mechanisms to get through those times?
Calling them.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other way I could have gotten through this program, and it will make me cry, but like there's no way I would have gotten through it if there weren't other people to call. Because like I said, your family members might not get it. They might not even know when to call you because you're so busy, right?
So busy, yeah.
And so sometimes it's just a matter of looking on the schedule and seeing like who's on shift right now, who's not, who can I call, who can I invite out to grab a drink or have dinner. I get calls from other co-residents that I'm like, I didn't even know that we were that close, but we just have that level of comfort, which is saying like, God, this happened and I'm beating myself up for it because we're so hard on ourselves. And just being able to be like, I'm here to listen. I had a case like that too. Don't worry. Like just having people to call, I think, makes all the difference in the hardest times I feel like I've had at this program.
There's really something about like shared trauma. People who have went through the same ordeals that you went through, that it brings this like bond that you just can't explain to other people who haven't been through it.
Yeah. That's like very much it. Honestly, like knowing when I needed to reach out and talk to people and be around people, and then also knowing when I needed to just like retreat into myself and just like have time to reflect and just sit there. Or honestly, like sometimes I'll call my boyfriend and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna veg out right now. Like, and he knows to like leave me alone for a couple of hours, and I'm just gonna sit there and just like watch a TV show that's like mindless for a little bit, and then like get over what I was, processing throughout the day. And then either reattacking it and thinking through it and discussing it with people who understand, or honestly just leaving it there and just deciding like what level of reflection, involvement, and like revisiting certain situations have. Like honestly, I had a case where there were multiple attendings in the room and everybody gave me their opinion at like one time, and I was like, this is great because you're all people that I love and cherish like so much, and you're all my favorites.
Right.
But like right
One
now,
at
I'm
a
like,
time.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like I'm so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But after I
love
sat
it.
down and like thought about it, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is great. Then they like reached out and like texted me, or I would see them next day, and they'd be like, sorry that you might have been bombarded, but like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, we just wanted to make sure like everything was good and that you were able to know or work through this if it were to ever happen to you again in the future. And I'm like, thank you. And it's, I don't know. So just knowing myself, knowing when to step back, knowing when to lean in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Knowing
just
thyself.
knowing
I love
myself.
it.
That's it. Yeah.
I remember I had like a really strong string of like EM only shifts for like 6 months just when we started residency. And I had gotten COVID and I was like, this is terrible. Yet I will be at home per the policy. And so that was just a time where I just remember feeling like super overwhelmed and like something just really kind of intervening of like, hey, now you have some time. What are you going to do with this time? What have you meant to be doing? And so even now when you don't have like multiple days off or you have your vacation months and things, I found like to keep myself balanced, I've really focused on like getting outside. That's something big for me. I live like near a park now and like we'll just go walk around the park, get some vitamin D. And then same thing, like scheduling out massages, scheduling out like quick trips to, local city near us, just so I can say I did something and don't feel like life is passing me by while I'm being a resident. So so for me, that means like doing something or like saying like I went somewhere or did something today. Sometimes it is vegging out on the couch, which I love.
I'm
just
a big
Netflix
proponent of that. Yeah.
Yeah, we go hard, but sometimes like, oh, this weekend I went somewhere, this weekend I did something, just being able to say that like and have something to say when people ask you makes me feel like a normal person again. And like, I'm just like every other, late 20-year-old going through life instead of like, I was at the hospital and then I went home and then I went to the hospital and then I went home. So.
Oh, those are all really good points. Some Felicia talked about, which is sometimes you have to just put it in a box and just put it away because you can't deal with it in real time. And it kind of makes me think about like during like the early pandemic in 2020, when, everything shut down, people were getting really, really sick, both young, old, big, little, kids. And like, it was a point in like July of 2020 where we were just literally seeing death like every single day. It was hitting people who were in college, people who were super old. We're having to give just breaking bad news to so many families. And it's like, you don't even have the time to like deal with it. And I remember putting in my phone because I was like, I don't know how long this pandemic is going to be. I put in my calendar for like 3 years later. I was like, process trauma that you're currently experiencing.
Oh my God.
And I forgot about it. I had the notification come on my phone a couple of weeks ago.
No way.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to have processed this trauma. And I'm like, I still haven't processed the trauma from like 4 years ago. I'm like, damn, that was 4 years ago. Like I didn't even realize it's
schedule, though.
been that long. I'm on the schedule though. I was like, I feel like I'm gonna be dealing with this pandemic for a long time. Let me just put this like 3-4 years down the line to deal with.
Well, now's the time, right?
I know, but it just made me think of that because we compartmentalize and put in our pockets so many things. It's just like, because we'll have a traumatic case, and then once we deal with that, it's like on to the next patient, and they're like, "Where's my blanket?"
What's my update?
I'm like, "Sir, if you knew what I was dealing with for the last hour, you would not be asking for a blanket and a Shasta."
But they would.
But you can't say that. You just have to be like, "I'm
People
sorry,
are
Mr.
dying.
Johnson. Your neighbor next door was just dying, and I had to tell that
Right. Yeah. They're no longer
they'll
with
never
us.
see their grandfather again, or their father, or their mother, or their son. But whatever. Here's your blanket.
That is
sorry.
something about EM. Like there is that. Everybody feels like this is the worst thing that happens to them. And usually it is like they're here because it's the worst thing that they ever came in for. But you're dealing with that from 30 people.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like, this thing is bad, but this thing is like they're going to die in the next few minutes. And then to come back to someone who's angry at you for waiting or angry about, what's happened or they weren't given updates. And you know why. You know the resources were pulled so hard to like save this person's life. And this is serious too, but I have to prioritize. So having those discussions with patients have been like probably one of my hardest to, empathize. I want to relate to you. I understand you're upset. And then also I would still do the same thing again, like to save this person's life, I can't get you, you know, whatever you're looking for right now, it has to hold. And so I think that's part of, I don't know if that goes back to one of your questions, part of the unexpected things of EM specifically is like dealing with, you know, everybody who's having the worst day possible and like still having to know like there's still levels to how we can help and when we can get there.
Yeah, I think everyone's expectations of us can get very unrealistic, even from our consultants, from our patients. I was just thinking about that as you were speaking, because we really are trying our best 99.9% of the time. Like we're putting our best foot forward. We're trying to help figure out how to coordinate your care. And sometimes like we're doing stuff for patients a lot that they don't see.
Right.
Yeah.
And like physically being there.
Yeah,
they're still sitting down. It's like, I'm working. I promise you.
I promise you I'm on my list. Like I promise you. I'm calling your doctor. I'm calling your specialist. It's just a tough part. I think it just contributes to burnout, honestly.
Yeah. I always like kind of compare it to being like a waiter, right? Because if you're at a wait at a restaurant, you have all these people who have all these orders and you're trying to balance everything. Like, okay, this guy got the tenderloin, this one wanted medium well, okay. And you're just trying to like prioritize and triage. Like, okay, this person's been waiting 20 minutes. Let me make sure they at least get their appetizer out. And that's kind of how it is. We're just like constantly running our list, triaging who's sick, who's not. And that's challenging. That adds to the burnout because it's just like mentally taxing. Like you're always thinking, not just on the medical part, but the triage part. So it can be
And usually it's all important, you know? Like
exactly.
It's never like tiny things. Like, oh, just the Tylenol, sure. But like, it's like I have a person on BiPAP and I have a person like about to come in for a code and let's get ready for this trauma. And then like, oh yeah, this person now, you know, their pain's back. So I think that's definitely part of it.
Absolutely.
Of like, you carry a lot. It's 8 hours, it's 10 hours, but it's a lot jam-packed into it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to flip the script a little bit. I want y'all to tell me what were some of your most memorable moments outside of like training? So like you came in, you met all these new people, you got all these new friends. You know, what was some memorable things? You're in a new city.
I think so. For me, it's been cool. Like I did a post-bac program, and so a lot of my friends from that matched at other programs in Houston, and then also here. So like combining everyone from like different phases of my life for me has been really awesome. And then like one of my like closest friends throughout residency like lives in my building, and that just was like happenstance too. We just met each other at like a big like pool party one day. So just being able to build relationships like outside of the residency, but having the people who are still in medicine, who still, you know, kind of get it, has been awesome for me. And then I've always tried to plan like a birthday trip, traveling like out of the country, like every year while I was in residency. So that's always given me something to look forward to. This year I'm not, because it's my sister's 30th birthday. So I was like, okay, I'll put my vacation week over your birthday.
Right. But we still going on vacation. Right. Awesome. I love it.
But yeah, so I think those birthday trips, those relationships, those experiences.
Nice.
I mean, I think one of the best reasons like why I loved matching here and being here in Houston is we're so close to everything that it's just super easy. I've been to Mexico yearly. That's like my new thing, I think. Since I'm going to be here, it's cheaper than going to like LA. And so being able to, you know, you can internationally travel. We have 3 cities like Houston or San Antonio, Austin, Dallas are all like drivable cities from
New
here.
Orleans.
Yeah. And so you can get a little staycation, like not too much, and you can be back in time for your shifts. And so I think same thing, being able to go like and have these like small little moments and kind of episodes of fun and have that life is really nice. And then I would say like the rodeo. I loved going with the rodeo.
Why did I think of that too?
The rodeo was fun.
I don't know why. It just felt very Texas. It felt very Texas. I'm not from here. It felt very Texas. It was fun. It was like a concert. It was not too expensive, which is a big deal. And just like we all went like a few times together. And so just the camaraderie of like, we're here, we're having fun. I'm living my 20s how I want to, was like all of that culmination together. So I love that.
Even though I hate the
Yeah, I'm allergic to horses.
See, must be.
I didn't know till I got there.
Yeah.
Well, I hate it for traffic reasons. But.
Oh yeah, because you live next to it.
Oh yeah.
it's
Traffic
bad.
around the rodeo time is the worst.
But I
It's the
appreciate
worst.
you let me park. You know what I mean?
I feel like my experiences are pretty similar.
Yeah.
I think one thing I appreciate about residency is like we do get those 7 consecutive days off 3 or 4 times a year, and
Right.
we in EM we can swap our shifts and maybe create another vacation week, which is really nice.
Yeah.
My most memorable moments really have just been like connecting with people in this group me that we have that we created when we were going through virtual application season.
Yeah.
Because we were that pandemic class that didn't get to do any in-person visits. And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah,
the awesome
that
part
sucked.
is
That
like,
sucked.
you know, intern year, we had a whole contingency go to like New Orleans, and I got to experience Mardi Gras. And, you know,
Oh,
I
that's
drove
cute.
up with Brianna, who's one of our friends who's at Baylor. And so
Mhm.
a lot of these, you know, little virtual relationships were
Yeah.
very real and tangible and have
Yeah.
carried me to the point where I'm like, I'm cool with trying Houston out for like a year or 2, even though I don't technically have like, you know, family and friends from before
Right.
residency, but
Right.
I'm willing to try it out because of the experiences I've had and the people I've met here.
For
and
sure.
I think that
Yeah.
is something that, yeah.
The conferences
I
are
remember.
something because I'm
Yeah.
thinking back to like ASAP and
Yeah, we
SAEM,
had
and
some
it's
good
like
times.
we have like this Black large group chat from when we all graduated and
Yeah.
we're going through.
Yeah.
That used to be so stressful. It was like, did you get an interview? Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And now it's like
It's very celebratory.
much more happy.
Yeah.
A lot less anxiety in that chat. But like being able to see people grow and knowing these are going to be your colleagues for life and
Right.
you know connect and like you're moving here to Houston. Some of them are coming like for jobs here and like seeing them contribute to their you know career. It's
Yeah.
really empowering to see like where we've come from and how we're going to continue to grow and have like that support system that not everybody is able to build.
sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're gonna talk about some of your toughest cases that you've had in residency. So just think about a case that was just really tough, that was just really emotionally taxing for whatever reason, and just kind of talk about what it was like and what the case was.
Yeah. So Zoe did this really cool thing this year where she put on a narrative medicine night for our residency. So we got to write pieces, share poems.
Like
about-
spoken word type stuff.
Yeah. Some
Yeah.
people did spoken
Some
word.
people
some
did.
Okay.
Skills.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
was storytelling. Like some
Storytelling.
people
Oh,
did
cool.
just
That's
like
dope. That's
shared
super
it
dope.
however they wanted to.
Yeah.
It was
Exactly.
pictures.
So it was really nice. But the case that I wrote about for that narrative night is the case that always stands like out in my head. And it's just this young woman who was coming from an OB clinic. We got a call, like the red phone rings, you know, when the red phone rings.
Uh-oh. That red
Something
phone.
Terrible is happening. It's like we just have a woman coming in, OB clinic. We don't know anything about her, maybe pregnant, maybe not, but she's unresponsive, has no pulses.
Uh-oh.
So we're just like, okay, this is a ruptured ectopic until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
Like she just went unresponsive, you know?
Yeah.
So we get there, she is pulseless, we're doing everything, lines, labbing her, all the drips possible, fastest positives, just free fluid everywhere. So we're like, okay, we'll call the trauma team over too. Like, let's drop a rabo in this girl. We don't know what's going on. So trauma
Yeah.
team comes over, we place the rabo, like GYN or OB comes down. They're like, okay, yeah, fastest positive. This likely is a ruptured ectopic. But it was just such an emotional like response because we were in there for hours, and it was like, if you have the ED team, the trauma team, and the OB team, like you know, it's not a good day.
That's not a bad. That's a bad.
You know,
day.
that's not a good
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Like for anybody
Yeah.
involved. So just like knowing the climate of everything that's happening, like Black maternal mortality rates, like you know,
Yeah.
I
are
already
tough.
knew. Like
Yeah.
before, I was like, I already know this is a young Black girl.
Yeah.
That's coming.
How
through.
old was she?
25 maybe.
Wow.
I can't
Yeah.
remember. And so just like working that case for so long, then going out and me having to break the news to them, and the mother just being like, but she was healthy.
Right.
And she just kept saying that over and over and over and over again, but she was healthy. And I'm just like sitting there trying not to bawl my eyes out because I'm like, I know. I you know.
Yeah.
So that hit me very emotionally. There was because to know how many people were in that room, and it wasn't even a large resuscitation bay,
Right.
because our AD split trauma and medicine. She came to the medicine side.
Right.
It wasn't a big room,
Mm.
and there were so many people in there. It was kind of like an unspoken. Everybody understood the gravity of the situation,
Right.
and so I respected it for that. The attending who was like, we're placing a boat. We did everything. We pulled out all the stops to try and, resuscitate and save this woman. And ultimately did not end up the way that anyone wanted to. But that's something that I've just never let go.
Yeah.
Like that case, I think will just always kind of follow me. Yeah. So it was hard.
Those are tough cases. OB maternal cases, kids, like they just hit you differently. Like you go the extra mile, you exhaust the kitchen sink to just try and get them back, because like the mom was saying, she's healthy, so yeah.
Yeah, I think mine was like on New Year's 2 years ago. And so there was just a person that came in and was like, motorcycles in Houston, NBC's in Houston, you just have a bad feeling about them already. And being at our hospital, like what would be the worst thing at a different hospital is like, oh yeah, this comes in on a Friday night. That's like,
it's a normal thing.
So they sent this person to the hall and like, okay, like the vital signs are okay. He was okay, like stable-ish,
right?
But just took a turn for the worse. Like sometime after the fast was done by like the ED resident, I was on the trauma rotating team. And so we're trying to make, some plans on like how we're going to get him to the OR because his fast was positive, and he just could not lay flat, just like could not at all. And eventually we're trying to like go, and he can just not tolerate it. So we should just take the airway. He has to get surgery anyway. And they go to intubate and just cannot intubate from above. There's just too many fractures in his face, bleeding out, and then he arrests. And so then the trauma team's trying to put a crike, the anesthesia team's trying to go from above. We're trying to run the resuscitation because he's dropping like his oxygen stats. And it just turns into 30 people in a room trying to resuscitate, and like nothing's happening. So just the worst like nightmare you can imagine on a holiday. And so we end up trying to get pulses back, try to go to the OR, like redline it to the OR, and he lose pulses again. And the elevator going up, we weren't even off the elevator yet. And so they're trying to do a thoracotomy in the elevator. It just gets so like chaotic. And I just remember thinking like, this is gonna traumatize this family for life. Whoever they are, wherever they're doing right now, it's just gonna hurt them for life. And it's really hard to think about holidays and working holidays and just praying. I don't know. Every time I work a holiday, it's only terrible things. It's never like simple, events. It's like things that are going to devastate families for life of how they're coming in. And so my family still, like my heart still goes out to that family because of how chaotic that room was. And everyone's trying the same thing. What can we do? What can we try? Are they a candidate for this? Can we try that? Should we just go to the OR? Like trying to stabilize. And I think those types of things stay with me, where medicine cannot overcompensate to some injuries. And like you can do anything you want to. You can try any new technique you want to, and you're not going to get over this hump. And so I think that's when it's hard to know that like there's just sometimes you're not going to save someone.
That question's really hard for me because I feel like I try to compartmentalize so much that I just tuck certain situations away. But there was a patient I had yesterday that just like kind of re-triggered a wound. It's patients who come in with like traumatic, devastating neurologic injuries from penetrating wounds. I've had 2 patients now. One was on New Year's Eve when I was in the surgical trauma ICU, who we were just getting brought up so many patients that day. Like I think we had a record number of trauma activations in the ER to the extent where like the fellow that's supposed to be with me in the ICU was so busy in the operating room that they were taking patients from the ER, whisking them up because they weren't stable to have CTs. They'd go to the OR, they'd come to us in the ICU, and I didn't really get checkout from anesthesia about what procedures were done. And then, we've got somebody who might still be crashing, who we're still trying to resuscitate, even though they just came back from the OR because they might have other things going on. So in this instance, I had a young patient who had a lot of abdominal injuries. So they patched everything up from the trauma surgery perspective, but she also had a penetrating wound from a gunshot or firework to the head. Oof. And this was something that I don't think was survivable. There was like actual brain matter coming out from one side of her skull.
Oh, wow.
And I was reminded of this patient because I had another patient yesterday, 22 years old, and I can't really say much because I think this is an active investigation, but gunshot wound to the head. And in both of these patients' instances, they came in with an age that was much older than how old they really were. Yesterday, I was told this patient's 35. I looked at her, I was like, this is not a 35-year-old. She ended up being very young, like 21, 22.
Oh,
and similarly, this patient that was brought to me in the STICU, they said that she was in her 20s or 30s. And then we found out that she was much, much younger, like 14. So we didn't even realize, right, that we were actually dealing with technically a pediatric patient.
Oh, wow.
But because there were so many unknowns and the ER is just being slammed, they're just doing what they can, right? But then you're working with a hypotensive patient now, and you know that this is mostly from the traumatic brain injury, and there's really not much you can do at that point.
For sure.
So I think what always shocks me is how much care is actually withdrawn when you realize that you've got something that medicine can't solve.
Right.
So it always saddens me to know like a split-second decision changed this person's life forever. And we are all actively saying we're not going to do anything heroic, right, to save this person because we already know the outcome. But it's always this weird, difficult gray area when that person still has some vital signs. You know they're not really compatible with life, but you're just basically keeping them alive either for the sake of like organ donation, which I know just sounds very morbid, but there's nothing else really that you can do until you get the family members there, you explain to them the gravity of the situation, and they have to make the decision. Either we kind of pull the plug or we just wait. So I was dealing with that for my entire shift yesterday, and I felt like I was unable to be present for like the other patients because we just keep responding to hypotension in a patient that we know we can't. We're already maxed out, right, on all pressors. There's nothing else we can do.
And that's really hard to do, is to explain to the family that there's nothing else that can be done to save this person. The last time they saw this person, they were alive, healthy, and well, especially the young people in trauma. And so when they see, the patient twitching or jerking, or they see like, oh, there's vital signs, there's a blood pressure, he's alive, but neurologically, there's nothing there. Right. This person was without oxygen for X amount of times. Like, I get that he's alive, quote unquote, but the person that you knew is no longer there.
Right. We're breathing for them. We're supporting their blood pressure.
We're taking over their physiology. So that's difficult. That's difficult.
Yeah. It just hurts when it's always like young Black girls. I just can't help but always think about that during the moment of silence. Like, why does it always have to be young Black girls? Every time. I think, and maybe it's just my own bias, and I have this emotional pull because they look like they could be my friends.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It always hits different when it's someone that looks like you. Your same age or in your age range. It's always tough. So next question. If you were to give advice to the next generation of people coming up, current residents, people who are going into emergency medicine, what advice would you give them as they're proceeding to take on this career?
Make sure you practice radical honesty with your loved ones, with your friends, your family members. Just make sure you keep people around you that you trust, you love, will support you. That you can be honest with when you're really not having a bad day and you need help. I think the hardest parts are like suffering in silence and just not really knowing whether or not you can reach out. You just want to keep people around you that will support you.
Don't isolate yourself.
That's hard. They're just like, I feel like you could give a whole bunch of advice
Yeah.
in like
Right.
different
Different areas.
different
of life.
areas. Like make sure you study.
Important.
But no, again, being honest with yourself, like knowing, is this what I want to do? I think we see some of the craziest things out of like, you know, most like specialties in the hospital. Like, of course, there's your trauma surgeon. They see crazy and wild things too. But like our general surgery residents, like they're only on trauma every so often. Like the ED, we're there every
day,
single day. You know, day in, day out, and you just get bombarded with crazy medical things, trauma things. Just making sure that your heart is really in it. Like, I don't think that this is a job that you can do without being fully invested. But also, when you are somebody who is very empathetic and very sensitive and like feeling, knowing how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because this show, it feels like it will suck everything out of you. Like I think you said earlier, it feels like it can suck everything out of you, but you have to learn how to not let it bother you. And I think there are some people around us or around me have worked with that are very good at that, and just being able to like pick up on little things that different people do. Like one person told me, be like a duck, let it roll off you, and I was like, what are you talking about? Shut up, that's so stupid. Why would you ever say something like that to me? That's crazy. Like but then I was like, you know what,
Kind of help me just glide off.
I guess I didn't have to be upset about that in the moment, but I'm like, no, that was
not a
messed
duck.
up. Like, I'm not no duck, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, learning how to let things roll off your back. Like you're always going to feel like you are the bad guy, and somehow everything will always come back to you. But if you know that you did your best, you tried your hardest, and honestly, if you fell short because you didn't know, the next time, make sure you know. Just always learn, keep learning, keep going.
For sure.
I love that.
For sure.
I think like figuring out what inside of medicine makes you happy, I think will add to the longevity of your career. Like when I went to the community, I was like, oh no, this is not for me. But like I had to figure out why that was. And then I remembered I miss like students, I miss learners. And what kind of learners do I specifically miss? I miss med students. And so that kind of ended up how I got into medical education and wanting to do that in the future. Is like the part that I feel happiest about in medicine is when I'm teaching or when a med student just did a lac repair and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so great. Like them being so happy about that and so proud of themselves and empowering them to like, you know, you can do this in OB-GYN and you want to go into this, you want to go into EM, you can do this every day. So that part is what fulfills me. And it took me 2.5 years to realize that. Yeah. But now I understand that's what's going to give me longevity in medicine. And so whether it's like you like to talk to patients, okay, maybe you need a slower paced ED. Maybe you need like an older paced ED where you get to really talk about people's lives and you'll see like the same people over and again. You have a little bit of continuity. I think there's ways to find out whatever piece of medicine that makes you the happiest to go for that type of environment. Even in EM, I think there's ways to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like something that Felicia talked about knowing that you're really passionate about this, because, you know, from far away, it may look really appealing, like, oh, ER medicine, adrenaline junkie, I love this, I love that. Sure. But there's a lot of like not so great things that can come with our specialty. We work random shifts, right? 6 a.m.s, 10 p.m.s, you're overnight, you're midday. You can't quite get a circadian rhythm. It's ever changing. It's like controlled chaos. We know our schedule, but it's like all over the place. Yeah. And we have to plan our lives around that. We don't have like a regular clinic job where it's just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you know, off weekends, holidays. Like we work holidays, we work Christmas, we work New Year's, we work Thanksgiving. And like you said, oftentimes those holidays are when like the worst things happen because nobody wants to go to the ER on Christmas. So the person who's having a real emergency is probably going to be the main one that you see, the cardiac patient who wasn't supposed to eat all that steak and salt, and now they have a heart attack on Christmas. So there's a lot of not so great things about our specialty, but you really have to love it. You know, like I love what I do. I love coming to work. I love, you know, the randomness of our training. So Yeah.
That's real. The randomness part. This is taking it back, because I remember when I was applying for jobs like out of college, I was taking a gap year, and I'd always be like, "So how predictable is your day to day?" Like that's when I realized I
like
need because
it.
people would be like, "What do you mean?" Like,
Right.
it's predictable. Like, this
Right.
is what you do, and I'd be like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah.
But no, I think that brings me joy, because it balances out your days that are terrible
Right.
and you're just like running from room to room doing resuscitations, versus like the days where you're just kind of like, I'm swimming along, let me call a nursing home, I can do that today.
Facts.
Oh, let me
Facts.
call this
Facts.
physician and get some collateral. Oh, the neuro team needed history, don't worry, I already got it, because I already made all the
There
calls.
you go.
Like I had time
There you go.
today.
There you go. There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's just nice.
I still think about like, oh, what else would I would do in medicine? And there's no other specialty that I would be happy with. Like, you get to see things, you get to use your hands, you get to use your brain, you get to use, all the things in front of you. And sometimes you don't get an answer. Like, sometimes it's like someone else has to find the answer to this, but I know, like, at least right now, like, I've done my part to like stabilize them. And that is enough for me.
Absolutely.
Because I think in like ICUs and things like that, you get the resuscitation, but everybody wants a final answer, and I don't think there is final answers to some things.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I think EM, you have to kind of be okay with like, it's to the ether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's above me
God
now.
bless you.
It's literally above me now.
Yeah.
So y'all would choose ER again?
I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel
For
like
sure.
we are biased, right? Like we're at the end of 3 really long and hard years.
Right.
There's a cumulative effect of residency that I cannot ignore.
Exactly.
But if I had the option, I just filled out my little AC GME survey. If I had the option to do this program again, I would.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
It has not been perfect, but
Yeah.
it has been so rewarding.
So
and
rewarding.
the job that we do and where we do it
Right.
and the capabilities that we have and the trust that our attendings have in us and our skill set is unparalleled.
Unmatched.
And
Absolutely.
where we are
Absolutely.
doing it is unparalleled
Yeah.
to other places. And I
Yeah.
think that like it's so easy to focus on the negatives and to talk about, the worst recess we've ever had. I appreciate like you're, asking us a lot of very balanced questions.
Yeah.
But things can so easily sway into the negative that we often don't think about how many like amazing days we have at work. Like this is a big reason why I love peds, because
Right.
half these kids aren't sick.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
it's a sick kid, it's a bad day.
It's a bad day. Yeah,
But
yeah.
most of our ped shifts, cough, runny nose,
Yeah.
gastroenteritis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I get to reassure you.
Yeah,
I get to play with your
exactly.
little 2-month-old
Yeah, yeah.
and coo and smile
Yeah.
and and I think that gives me joy at work, where I'm not just dealing with coding death and dying all the time.
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
that there are days or even just moments with other patients, where you're like, I get to laugh with you. I get
Yeah.
to find out things about you and your family. I
Yeah.
get to like, there's a lot of reward with what we do.
For sure. It is.
As
It
hard
is.
as it is.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all for coming. I really appreciate this conversation. I think it was
Thanks for
very
having us.
helpful for the general public and for those that are in medicine field. And I can just say, like, as being on the other side of it, like, it does get so much better. I know we hear that all the time, but it really does get so much better,
Thank
you
you.
know,
Yeah.
in so many
Can't
ways.
wait.
And so you just, y'all are on the right path. Y'all are all very smart, intelligent Black women in medicine who are doing great things. So it's only gonna get better. All right, thank y'all. Thank y'all. So
Thanks for having
thank y'all. That's our episode today on Society the Podcast. We'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace.
Thank you.